Welcome back to Sweet Pea and Bam. My name is Bam,
And I'm Sweet Pea or Susie.
and we're coming back at you again with episode 5 of the Sweet Pea and Bam podcast,
Mm-hmm.
season 2. Today we are talking about life married to a healthcare worker, and I'm not a healthcare worker. Susie is. So Susie, can you briefly tell people what you do for work?
Yeah. Um. Sorry, I'm laughing because this is our second time trying this. The first time I just was crying because I trauma relived. But here's take two. Hopefully this goes a little better. I'm a nurse in the operating room. That's the short of it, basically.
Okay,
You
you're a
want to know
nurse.
more about that, or
Um,
what's your other questions?
There's a little bit of a different format here, so bear with me a little bit as I get my interviewer hat on.
Mm-hmm.
So, Susie, I have here that you have witnessed some people in unfortunate circumstances in the line of your work. Um, what effect has that had on you, would you say?
Do you want to know about what type of things I've seen or just like the overall effect?
Well, I would say if you start with the overall effect and then maybe bring it home with an example of how what you see at work kind of colors the rest of your life.
Um, I think the overall effect is that I'm just a little more afraid than the normal person, I would say. Um, that is because I see so many things go wrong. I see the effects of what happens when things go wrong, like those viral videos that you see, like the viral videos we saw yesterday about motorcycle accidents. It's like, oh, they hit the ground. Ouch. Okay, moving on to the next video on your TikTok or Instagram or whatever. It's like all I'm thinking about is like, oh, I've seen that guy come into the operating room covered head to toe and like stones ingrained into his skin if he even has any skin left. Sorry, maybe this is graphic. Maybe we should do a trigger warning before. It's a little graphic, but anyways, I'm always thinking of that thing or like what could have happened, even if I don't see anything dangerous happen. Like what could bad happen? What bad could happen because I've seen bad things happen.
Yeah, I think that tells us that gives us the picture where we're starting here,
Mhm.
and we're gonna try and share our experiences, and maybe we can help somebody else, maybe in a similar situation, or maybe you're married to somebody in healthcare and you see them acting a certain way, but you don't really have the context for it. So
Mhm.
hopefully we can give you something to go off of here. I've got a little note here just about so we've got your side as the healthcare worker, so my side as the husband. I need to remind myself about what you've seen because sometimes it can come across as nagging or come across as Susie won't let me do anything, but it doesn't. If I think about it in the context of Susie saw a guy fall off a ladder, that's why she doesn't want me to use an incorrect ladder to get on the roof, or Susie has seen somebody have to have a limb amputated because of diabetes, so
Mhm.
if I if I have a high A1C, that's the first thing she's thinking of. Is that fair?
Yeah, and I think also it's not as simple as you could break something. It's like I haven't just seen that because I haven't just worked in the operating room. I've worked in other places where you're not just seeing the first initial surgery, but even in the operating room, we see not just the first initial surgery, we see like the repeat surgery and the repeat surgery after that. And now, like, I don't think all nurses think this way or doctors or whoever is in the healthcare field. I think my brain is also a little special in the fact that sometimes I can definitely spiral and thinking the worst case scenario. I think it's just heightened by the fact that I've actually seen the worst case scenario happen. Like, it's not just that you fall off a ladder and break your ankle or break your foot or whatever. It's, that can turn into a repeat surgery or that can turn into an infection of the hardware because it's very high place for infection. And then that turns into literally months and months of dressing changes and repeat surgeries, and eventually you have to have your foot taken out. Like, I'm not saying you, but like I've seen that happen. And that's the part that like the rabbit hole that sometimes I can get sucked into. And it's not to say that all the responsibility is on you or the people around me. They'll be so careful because Susie's seen the worst things happen. Part of it also that I've kind of been growing in is that realizing that God is in control still.
Amen.
Because that's the part that sometimes I forget. Even though I know it in my mind, my heart forgets it. My emotional brain, I guess you could say, forgets that part. And that's something that I've been working on. Like, you can testify to that part. Like, I actually let you get on a ladder and go on the roof, which is literally, maybe that seems pathetic, but like, I literally had to pray about it. And I literally had to feel like God was saying, like, it's okay. You can trust me. Like, I've got this. And that's the thing that we really do have to realize is the balance between caution in like being wise, but also the balance between that and not having a spirit of fear always and having a spirit of power and love and a sound mind that God promises us in the Bible. That's the part that is warring inside of me that maybe I would have always had a little bit of, but being a nurse, I have maybe more of because I've seen so many horrible things happen, I guess.
That makes sense. It's your even there's anxiety and then there's evidence-based anxiety. You could say maybe it's not for nothing. Like because you've seen the
Yeah.
reality, you've seen the worst case scenario, the worst case scenario.
Right,
Uh,
but to your point, there is evidence-based anxiety, as you say, and there's like paranoia where there's no evidence for that. I would say both need to be under, both need to be given to God.
right,
Because, it says like, I think there's 365 times in the Bible or something that says, be not anxious, do not be anxious, be anxious in nothing,
mm,
all those things, or some variety of them. And so it's like, just because the anxiety is based in reality doesn't mean that we shouldn't then also still give it to God. That's the part
right,
that I'm still working with, is, working through.
right. Well, thanks for sharing, Susie. I have another point here. Sorry, my voice is not here. Okay, it's back. I've got another note here that due to the nature of your job, you tend to be the go-to person when people have medical health questions. Would you like to elaborate on how people think that you are the source of all medical knowledge and Susie must know the answers to my medical problem?
I mean, I don't think that in a like prideful way, like, oh yeah, I know that. And it's the opposite actually. It's like, and not that I think that everybody has such a high opinion of me or anything, but I think sometimes people, they have a medical problem with themselves or their kids or whatever, and they're like, oh, okay, well, Susie is in the medical field, so she must know something about it. And it's like, no, first of all, I'm not a doctor. They go to way more school than I did. I mean, I did go to a lot of school, but they go to more school than I ever did. But second of all, like, I don't think they think about the fact that, like, I'm sure doctors or really any healthcare worker gets something, some similar form of this. It's like, okay, like if you think about it this way, in the terms of nursing, like, yes, we can be generalized and we can work really in any area over the course of our career, but like a doctor, we usually tend to specialize at least for a period of time in different things. So like think about like a dermatologist, going to a dermatologist and saying, "Hey, my kid has this I was about to say rash, but that would apply." Hey, my kid has a fever of this and has a sore throat, and can you look at their tonsils? And it's like, what is your diagnosis? It's like, I'm a dermatologist. I don't know. Or something, or I don't know. Does that make sense? So it's
It
like
does.
when people come to me and ask me, especially specifically kid things, because I did not have a very good teacher in pediatrics.
Okay.
It was like an interim teacher and she knew nothing. She literally referred us to WebMD for our questions. Not recommended. And So, and I didn't really have that much time like working with pediatrics. So, yes, I have a ton of nephews and nieces, and via that, like I know some things through research and stuff, and through like general knowledge. But like that always gives me the most anxiety when people ask me like, "Well, my kid has this thing. Like, what is it?" I'm like, I don't know. Ask me about your surgery, and I'll know, or something like that.
So
But
Susie is open to all surgery questions.
no.
You heard it here first, especially orthopedics.
I
Uh,
could probably answer quite a few of those questions, but I don't definitely don't know everything on that end either.
right. So that's a little bit of a context setting,
Yeah.
which I think is good to put out there. And well, and it applies to me because I have a little note here that these are some of the questions that I've asked Susie, thinking that she's the fountain of all knowledge.
Like that one time that you asked me if what was that question that you asked me, how do we calculate the ideal amount of calories, I think,
Right.
for a person? I was like, I don't even know if anybody knows that. I mean, there's rough estimates, but I don't know.
Right. I
Yeah.
mean, that's what I had written here. It's like, Susie, why is there not a way to know for your personal body how many calories you burn? And I mean, and since I asked you, I've been told that based upon your height and your weight, there's different metrics. But obviously, your health,
Generalizations, yeah.
is very generalized. People have different bone density. People have different metabolisms. There is so much into it, and sometimes they're just medicine is limited, right? I think you've told me that. Like you sometimes we give medicine too much power. You think it has
Too
all of
much,
the answers,
yeah, too much credit, really.
right? There's still a lot of unknowns. There's still a lot of things that doctors just say, "I'm not sure what's going on here. Let me do some more tests. Let me, you know." And sometimes where isn't there a thing? There's like a syndrome vs a disease. Like PCOS is a syndrome because they know the symptoms that usually clump together, but they don't necessarily know the mechanism. It's not a disease where they can trace it to one thing. Like this is what's causing it. They just know these type of symptoms come together. Is that a fair description?
Yeah, I think it's like, oh, there's not like a diagnosis, as in like there's one sure way to treat it, or like one sure set of tests that will definitely diagnose it. I think that's what they mean.
Okay.
Like different people have different problems. Like for using PCOS as examples, like some people will have infertility, some won't. Some will have cysts, some won't. Some will have high elevated testosterone, some won't. Some will have insulin sensitivity, some won't. So it's like for the most part, people have like a mix, like a some of them in combination, and that's usually how they diagnose it, I think. But they don't all have the same symptoms or like of most of the symptoms. They usually have like a combination of the list or whatever.
Right. And I guess maybe to contrast it, like I have asthma, and it's very well known the mechanism of it, and they can prescribe me a relief inhaler, which targets a very specific part of my body, which will immediately relieve symptoms.
Hmm.
Right. So that it's understood to the level of you can have an intervention that is very specific to your condition. But like in PCOS, there is not one medication that will remove your PCOS.
Yeah.
Right. So it's kind of just a good reminder, yeah, that not all problems can be solved via medicine, I guess, and a good reminder for myself. Um, the next little aspect of being married to a healthcare worker I have here that we want to discuss is living with somebody who works odd hours, and this is not limited to healthcare workers. Obviously, any first responder, any person who has to work on call. We have a family member. Hey, Alex, if you're watching, he has to be on call sometimes. He has to be up at night to take. He's a coder, software guy. Sometimes something breaks in the middle of the night, and he has to wake up and deal with that. And so I guess I don't know if we want to switch the interview style to me to ask me what it's like living with somebody who's working weird hours. Or I guess we could just
What
go back.
is it like?
We could go back and forth. But I don't know. What do you think? Should I continue interviewing you, or would you want to switch it?
I mean, I think this can be a free flowing conversation. Is that what you
I like structure. If you haven't noticed,
mean? I'm the
so
spontaneous one. He's the planner.
if
Yeah, yeah. What is it like being? Because I know for me, I used to be on call more regularly, and I would have to take a certain amount of call every week or 6 weeks or whatever schedule period. Now that I'm per diem, I kind of have more flexibility with it. So if I want to take call, I can. If I don't, I don't have to. But I do still take call. Like last night, I was on call. Um, and it can be either really slow or it can be really crazy. What is it like for you, like when I get called in or when I come home, like at crazy hours of the night, or things like that?
It's definitely is weird. It's a weird lifestyle. It's a shift of expectations for sure. I think, like I said, I'm a planner. I like to have things a certain way. Um, and like, hey, like if Susie worked her 10-hour shift, whatever, 8 to 6, and then she was on call and she came home at 3 a.m. She's probably not going to do any chores. She's probably not going to do the laundry. She's probably, I mean, not to say she's the only one who does all of that stuff in our household, but like as a husband or as a spouse, you need to really, it should be obvious, but reset your expectations. You probably would need one. Like if somebody needs to cook, it's probably the person who wasn't on call. Um, so I think that big part of it, just the way you split responsibilities, just having that in the back of your mind that you may have to take up the slack if the other person is unavailable. And I think a partner of that is, had it on the tip of my tongue. It's gone. I was gonna say something else about being the person that's not on call, but I don't know. Yeah. Do you have any other questions about what it's like?
Yeah, I think it's easier. I think it's still hard because like right now, especially when it's like, oh, I think the day is finishing up. I think I'll be able to be home at like 5:30 or 7:30, and then it's like right when you're about to go home, they add on like this huge case and you don't get home. And then when you're in the middle of that case, then they add on another case, and then you're not home till 4 a.m. or something, and you've been there since 7 a.m. or 9 a.m. or whatever. Yeah, just like the uncertainty of that, and also like being like, oh, I'm about to be home, and then you're like, yay, and then you just never come home, or I mean, me, you as it being me, and being like, hey, can you cook dinner, please? Like, I had something planned, but I obviously am not gonna be home, or like you're gonna have to eat on your own, you're gonna have to go to bed on your own. That's one thing that I don't really like. That's what I don't really like about call is that me and Bam as a couple, we try very hard to like even if we don't go to bed at the exact same time, like we have like a nighttime routine where we read our Bible and we pray and we kind of just like spend some time with each other even if we've been really busy that at that, the whole day or whatever. That's kind of like our routine. So like coming home personally and you're already asleep is very like makes me feel really
Right,
sad.
and I know that, and I think like we spoke, like sometimes I do try to stay up, even if it is
But
staying
then you
up super
can't
late.
always.
Right, if I'm working the
Yeah.
next day, then we're limited. But
Right.
right, these are the kind of conversations you need to have. It's like, hey, I know you're really tired, but do you mind staying up so at least I can see you? Because right, imagine Susie went to work in the morning. Maybe she woke up before I woke up, and then she's coming home when I've gone to bed. She hasn't seen me for a whole day.
Yeah, and
Right.
I think it's what I was gonna say is sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Were you
No, no,
finishing that?
my point was finished.
Um, what I was gonna say is that that's hard though not the end of the world because like I said I try to not overload myself because in terms of just keeping myself balanced with life and whatever. That would be so hard with kids.
Right.
I feel like that would be kind of traumatizing as a child to be like, oh, I woke up, mom was gone, and I went to bed, and mom never was there the whole time. I did not see her. Like, I feel like that would be really hard. And so I don't know. I don't know how my coworkers with kids balance that. They obviously have a very supportive spouse, I'm guessing, or family if they don't have a spouse, where they can do that. Or I think I've seen some of them FaceTiming their kids, like when they have a break in between, but still, that it's pretty hard. It's rough.
Right. I mean, one thing, like we're church people, so every once in a while, I mean, not of recent times because you don't really work on Saturdays as much. But there were times when maybe you worked a weekend and then I was in church by myself. And I think sometimes it's a little bit awkward. Like we're known as a couple. Like we do Sunday school together. We do stuff together. And then you're in church by yourself and it's like, oh, where's my wife? Like there is a little bit of that. And I don't know. It's just, it's fine. I mean, it's not ideal, but it
Hmm.
is for the job Susie does and the job my sister Tossin does. She's also a nurse. Somebody needs to be there. Somebody needs to be there in the middle of the night to respond to emergencies.
Yeah.
So it's a much needed role, and it kind of needs. it takes a little bit of sacrifice on the family side. And like we said, we try to be intentional about our marriage. So say even if we had a terrible, no, we're not even terrible. Like we weren't able to see each other that whole week, we'll find a day where you're off work and I'm off work, or I can switch my hours around, and we're going to do something for us because we realize that the rest of the week was very work focused.
Yeah. And I think that it's very easy to get stuck in this mindset. I find with this job, the ability, like you can pick up more call as much as you want, basically, and most people, a lot of them want to give it away because they, like I said, it's very hard to, it's rough to balance your life when you're on call for 24 hours, 48 hours, whatever. And you might never leave for that whole time. But it's hard because you can pick up as many hours as you want. And so it's a struggle between like being like, oh, that I know that if I pick up an extra shift or a couple extra shifts, I'll be able to earn X amount more money. And like it's so, you can earn it so fast and so easily, as in like you will get the money. Like the amount of times that you're on call that you don't get called in is not super high. It's not easy work by any means. So then trying to remember, be like, I don't need that money. Like, and just being stepping back and be like, that my time with my family is way more important than any money that I can make. And obviously, you have to like work to live, of course. Like, you need money to live, but balancing that with not being a workaholic, I guess.
Yeah, and then those are conversations we have that, hey, what are we prioritizing for our marriage? Are we do we want to pay off our house super quickly and go on these crazy extravagant vacations, or and never see each other, or
Mm-hmm.
are we gonna work a little bit less hours and treasure more moments, day to day or week to week?
Yeah, and I think that's something that is maybe sounds crazy to some people because I know that the culture sometimes can be like, work really hard when you're young, and then when you're 30, you can retire early and do whatever you want, and blah, blah, blah. It's like, that's the other side of a healthcare worker is that you see young people die and you realize, and the Bible tells us that life is a vapor, not as in like everybody's life is short, but it passes by so quickly, even if it's not. And you have to remember that we're not guaranteed tomorrow. And it's not, it's never so clear and apparent when you see someone else's life pass away. Like they were here and then the next second they're not. And it's, I think it'd be different if I was working in hospice where it's like, hey, that's kind of the expectation. It's more like this person was going about their day and then that everything was normal and then it wasn't. And it really brings that weight of our lives really to the forefront of your mind and makes you realize, or at least to me, realize like, wow, like there's not really any money that's worth, like when I die, I'm not taking my money with me,
Right, right.
So yeah, just treasuring each moment with your family.
And I would say that's a major positive of having a spouse in healthcare because they can give you that perspective, like you're saying, that don't get stuck in a rat race. This life is short. No, tomorrow is not promised. So treasure the moments, make time to be off work, make time to go on vacation. That was a big thing for us early in our marriage. Was in the UK, I used to accumulate a lot of vacation days, and I wouldn't use them all, and I'd probably lose them, in the next year. But if since we're married, we're using our vacation days. Whatever we have, let's use it. Let's take advantage of it. We don't Let's make enough money to live and pay whatever bills we have, pay back loans, fulfill our responsibilities, but not to the extreme of losing out on the intimacy in our marriage.
Yeah, and like I think God has really blessed us, and I think that we like to bless others too, like not just work to pay our bills, but at the same time, because I think someone could make the argument, well, you could like not just use that money on yourself, you use it on someone else. Like, well, yeah, and I think that we try to I prayed to be that way, but also like time also is a thing that you can give to other people, and if you're always
Right.
working, you can't give that time to anyone else.
Well, I know there's a verse that also says charity begins at home. So you don't want to work so hard on other people and, leave your family in the lurch.
Yeah.
Um, but Susie, since we are a relationship based podcast, we love to talk about relationships and faith. That's kind of our theme. What would you tell somebody considering dating or even marrying somebody who's a healthcare worker? Like, what was one message or one thing for them to keep in mind as they're considering? Obviously, there's a lot more to somebody than their career, but just in this aspect of being a healthcare worker, what is a big thing to consider when considering getting into a relationship with somebody like that?
I think a big thing is consider um carefully how selfless you are and how supportive you are, because if you're not, well, the selflessness I think is important for just marriage in general. I think what I'm thinking about is like what how you are for me, like how supportive you are for me. If you are not supportive, then I don't think it's a good idea, because healthcare workers experience a type of stress that's so different than other types of stress. And I've made this point to you is like, specifically, especially in my job, like I think it also depends, of course, what area, but like a lot of areas of healthcare workers, at least, like if you mess up and you send the wrong email, like you might make a client a little bit upset and have to like, backtrack and like whatever, you know what I mean? If I mess up, someone could die. Someone could lose their limb or their life. And not to say that I'm like, oh, their life is in my hands and I'm so important, but like, and the doctors there, of course, are doing a lot. The tech there is doing a lot, but we all have a really big responsibility in this patient's well-being. And if we mess up in some way, like, not to say that every no, we can't make any mistakes. We do make mistakes sometimes, but for the most part, like, we're so careful because of that stress. Like, we know how much is in our hands, like the weight of what is in our hands. Like, even a little mistake could cost someone quite a bit. Um, and so that's a type of stress that like is next level, I think. And so like if you don't have somebody who's supportive like that, you it's not really a good idea, I think, for you to be in a relationship with them. But I think that also there's a lot of positives. I think that's like there's a lot of positives out of being with them. Like you get somebody who went into that a very hard job that like I would say requires you to be very caring about people, because if you're not, you're probably not going to be a very good healthcare worker. And so like a caring person and not a smart person, I would say that,
Right.
because it's not easy. Like you have to know a lot of different things. I
So
don't know.
we're telling you to date healthcare
It
workers.
makes me sound really like full of myself. I'm like, yeah, we're
Date
so
people that look
great.
like me with my job. Yeah, they're the best people. But don't be scared away from it. Maybe that's a good message to
No.
say. Just because somebody works on call, maybe they work nights. Sometimes you don't see them in church because they had to work the night before. It
Yeah.
doesn't mean they're not a good Christian. I remember we had a little family chat back in the UK about, well, should you ever work a job that takes you away from church sometimes? And it's who better to be delivering babies in Sunday evening than a Christian, right? He was like, hey, this is the Lord's day, and I'm doing the Lord's work. I'm helping people. So
Mm.
yeah, we recommend. So what Susie said, you might have to be a little bit. It might push you out of your comfort zone. But yeah, don't be scared away by somebody being in healthcare. Thank you for joining us on this podcast, episode 5. We hope you've enjoyed season 2 so far. Let us know if you've listened this far. I guess you like us or something. So
If you have
yeah,
any questions or rebuttals or hey, would
right.
you like you should elaborate on that point. Let us know.
We're here
We'd
for
love
it.
to elaborate. We could talk for hours and hours and hours, and we do sometimes, a lot of times. So
If you like this content, I'd recommend that you subscribe to our YouTube channel or follow us on Spotify if you're listening on either of those platforms, so you'll get notifications when we're releasing another episode. We're trying to release very succinctly this season. So the next episode should be next Saturday, and so for a weekly upload until we get to episode 8, and that will be the end of season 2. But yeah, thank you for listening, and God bless.
God bless you.